Guys, welcome back to Election Center, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the 1968 U.S. presidential election and an alternate scenario where George Wallace had not run as the American Independent nominee in the general election. So, in the 1968 presidential election, we had Richard Nixon as the Republican, Hubert Humphrey as the Democrat, and then the American Independent Party, George Wallace was the nominee. And George Wallace running on a very segregationist platform. And he was able to win 5 southern states, as you can see here. And for a third party, he just garnered a lot of support. And we're just going to be talking about an alternate scenario where he had not run in the general election here. But let's just jump in here. So you see he won these 5 southern states. He did well in the more pro-segregation areas because he just ran on a very segregationist type platform. But I think these states in this type of scenario where George Wallace hadn't been on the ballot would have gone to Nixon, because Hubert Humphrey over here, very much a civil rights advocate, very pro-civil rights. Richard Nixon a bit more cautious in his rhetoric. And so I think these voters would have gone to Nixon, in 1972. I think they pretty much all went to Nixon. But yeah, he probably would have won these Wallace states here. And let's get rid of this faithless elector in North Carolina. There was a faithless elector that was pledged to Nixon in North Carolina. It went for Wallace, so let's just get rid of that here. But yeah. So this puts it at 347 for Nixon, and Hubert Humphrey, he got 191. But, there would have been other effects, right? Because where do these remaining Wallace votes go? Well, Wallace was able to do pretty well with blue-collar voters here in the Midwest and the North, and I think maybe enough of them would have split towards Humphrey to give him some of these states. For instance, maybe Humphrey would have carried Illinois or Ohio or Wisconsin, and maybe he would have carried Delaware and New Jersey. So yeah, there would be a lot of other states on the table for Humphrey as well. Like, he could have won California here, which was pretty close in terms of the margin. Wallace getting enough vote that it could have split enough for Humphrey maybe and given the state to him. So let me actually just show you guys the margins in some of these states. Here on uselectionatlas.org, got the results for 1968 loaded up. Or no, this is 1956, sorry. Let's go to 1968 here. And, checking out some of these states, look at the margin, pretty close in Wisconsin. If you look at the stats here, Wallace getting nearly 8%. Illinois, similar story, he gets to over 8%. Ohio, pretty close margin, he gets almost 12%. See the same story in Delaware and New Jersey. California, Wallace getting almost 7%. If enough of that vote split towards Humphrey, he could have won the state. Humphrey could have won the state. But, for now I'll leave California for Nixon. Because, while blue-collar voters are key to winning some of these states here, like these Midwest states. And as I recall, it might have been a similar story in Delaware or New Jersey, where, there's reason to believe that these voters would have split more towards Humphrey. I personally don't know that the same is true for maybe all of these states, like California. Maybe it's the case. I personally haven't seen. I don't personally have a reason to believe that these voters would have split super heavily for Humphrey. Whereas I have seen things that have led me to believe that they would have maybe split more towards Humphrey in these states that I gave to him. So I'll just leave California for Nixon right now. But another state, this would have flipped to Nixon here in Texas, I think. Because, let me show you guys the margin here. Less than 2%. Quite a close race in Texas. See Wallace getting 18.97%. And I think these Wallace voters in the South would have helped Nixon get the state in this type of a scenario. Take Wallace out of the picture, and I think Nixon would have gotten Texas. And so this is pretty much the final alternate map in this alternate 1968 election scenario where you don't have George Wallace as the American independent third-party candidate. So yeah, this is my take, and you see the final map here on your screen. Richard Nixon wins with 288 electoral votes to Hubert Humphrey's 250 electoral votes. So while this map visually looks quite red, when you actually look at the numbers up here in terms of electoral votes, it's fairly close, 288 to 250. So Hubert Humphrey, it ends up being a closer margin in the electoral vote in this type of scenario. But I think it would actually, in the popular vote, be a wider margin for Nixon. You see here, in the popular vote, Nixon barely won in our timeline by less than 1%. It looks like around 0.7. But yeah, so George Wallace, though, you take him out of the picture, remember, the areas where he garnered the most support were in these southern states. That was where most of his support was coming from. So these voters, I think, would have split more heavily for Nixon. And while you do have Humphrey also picking up some support, in like the Midwest, these are not states where Wallace did nearly as well. And so I think with Wallace out of the picture, all of these votes, where Wallace was sometimes getting first or second place, oftentimes getting first or second, it looks like in most of these states actually, then that would have meant a more substantial margin for Nixon in the popular vote of maybe like a number of points. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much just my opinion of what would have happened in the 1968 election had George Wallace been out of the picture. I'm not going to get into like the ripple effect of maybe how the campaign could have turned out differently with George Wallace out of the picture, but yeah, basically sort of where I think his votes would have gone. But yeah, that's a wrap on this video, and so definitely hope you guys liked this video and thought it was interesting, and so definitely let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions and takes in the comments section about what you think would have happened in this alternate U.S. presidential election scenario. But yeah, definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you like this type of content I make here on this channel about electoral maps, election scenarios, election analysis, all things elections related, definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel, because my videos are going to be right up your alley if this is something that interests you. But yeah, one last time, hope you guys enjoyed this video, thought it was interesting, and I'll see you in the next election center video. Bye, guys.